Live from Lake Geneva in Switzerland. I feel like I've been there all morning. Of course, by the time you're hearing this, it's not morning. But after spending 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours glued to either CNN or MSNBC to try to comprehend either the importance of this summit meeting or the lack thereof between Putin and Biden, I came away from the whole thing glad that there is talk going on that beats the hell out of exchanging thermonuclear weapons. But I don't know. I've been watching this play out since, these meetings between Americans and Russians or Soviets at the time since, Nixon, I guess, since he was he vice president, the famous or infamous kitchen discussion. Was it in Moscow, where an American exhibit of all the wonderful new things you could find in an American kitchen, or that women could find in an American kitchen in the late 1950s, was put on display at some sort of an expo in Moscow, and Khrushchev showed up. And well, it's true that my entire life, seriously, my entire life since I was about 10 years old, has been overshadowed by the very real possibility, if not probability at different times, of thermonuclear annihilation in the same amount of time it took to ignite a reaction that would just destroy everything. So the fact that that did not happen since I've been a kid never fails to astonish me. So what happened today? Well, by the time you hear this podcast, I'm sure it's been chewed over by all the commentators and experts and former this and former that. At least, and I mean this, at the very least, Putin had some good things. I realize Putin's just a liar. He's like Trump. He's just a total bullshit, a con artist, fascist. But he had a few good things to say about Biden that were not the sort of good things that he let it be known he felt about the orange vomit. The orange vomit, as far as Putin was concerned, was a fucking lapdog. Worse, he was a little poodle that ran around at Putin's feet, begging for little scraps of this and scraps of that. Jesus, oh God, don't do it. Don't talk about Trump. Anyway, I've got to mention, though, Viola Hill. Remember her? She testified in one of the, I guess it was the impeachment trial, or one of the actions taken against this criminal son of a bitch when he was in office. She was, at one time, Viola Hill, the Orange Vomit's top Russia advisor. And last night, just before this event today, she said she was so alarmed during that joint press conference that the Orange Vomit had with the short dictator, Putin, that she, Viola Hill, had looked for a fire alarm to pull. No, seriously. Or she was considering faking a medical emergency, clutching her chest and saying, oh my God, I have pain. She told last night on CNN, she told Don Lemon, quote, I just thought, let's cut this off and try to end it. I couldn't come up with anything that just wouldn't add to this terrible spectacle that was occurring, end quote. Now, that was her assessment of that ridiculous press conference. You remember that, where Trump more or less got on his knees in front of Putin and did to Putin what Monica Lewinsky did apparently for Bill Clinton, and what Trump's entire cabinet would do for Trump anytime he asked. And that was when the Orange Vomit decided not to support the U.S. government's assessment, his government at the time, of Russian interference in the 2016 election and said that, I believe Mr. Putin, or whatever the fuck the orange vomit said. And it was at that point, when that was going on, that Viola Hill felt the need to fake a medical emergency to bring this shit to an end. But anyway, none of that happened this time, and part of the reason was they had separate press conferences, which was a brilliant idea, and it's my understanding that was from the Biden people. The advisors to Biden, I would imagine that Biden, being Biden, probably would have said, no, let's have a joint conference, which would have been absolutely suicidal on Biden's part. I mean, yeah, he's my president. Yeah, I voted for him. But up against Putin, Putin is what, 20 years younger than, around 20 years younger, a much better liar. I'm not saying that Biden isn't a liar to the degree that a politician of Biden's sort needs to be a liar. And maybe liar is not the right word, a stretcher of the truth. all those comparative words or similar sounding words we were supposed to use in describing Trump's lies. But Biden would have been mincemeat for the former KGB officer, Vladimir Putin. There's no question. So I think his advisors prevailed upon Biden to no joint press conference. And then the idea was let Putin go first, which also was a brilliant idea. So Putin could stand there basking in the glory of being on the world stage. And then Biden would have a chance to respond to the bullshit that Putin was putting out there. But Biden apparently spent the last week or two in consultation with other leaders. He certainly did when he attended NATO and when he attended the G7 about how to talk to this fascist son of a bitch. Also, his national security aides and political advisors and yada, 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 yada. Now, according to CNN, officials said that Russia was pushing for a joint press conference because they have a very fresh memory of the way they were able to hose the orange vomit. They just beat fucking Trump into the ground, didn't they? In front of the entire world. Trump, with his obsequious little smile and his grin and his nods toward this fascist son of a bitch standing next to him. But anyway, even though Russia wanted a joint press conference, the U.S. advisors to Biden resisted, but because they didn't want to give the Christian fascist Vladimir Putin the same kind of platform that he had after that disastrous meeting with the orange vomit in Helsinki, and officials, people advising Biden, said they were very mindful of Putin's desire to, through his bullshit and his rhetoric, to appear like he'd gotten the better, once again, of another U.S. president. And these advisors to Biden also wanted to avoid a situation that would have devolved into a tit-for-tat playing out in public. You remember Biden and Trump during one of the debates. I mean, Biden was shocked that a human being running for re-election of the presidency was able to stand there and spew endlessly the kind of garbled bullshit that the orange vomit was spewing. And, Biden's reaction was not necessarily a very good one, especially when he said, oh, why don't you shut up or something like that. I mean, that got a little bit fifth grader-ish, in my opinion. But anyway, the advisors to Biden did not want to put him in a position, Biden in a position where he might be tempted to slap back at the bullshit that Putin was putting out. Anyway, that decision to hold separate press conferences after their meeting also came on the advice of a group of Russia experts who had met with Biden earlier this month. And of course, all this is according to sources familiar with the discussions who are not authorized, blah, 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 blah. And on Sunday, this past Sunday, explaining the decision to hold separate press conferences, Biden said, quote, I think it was on one of the Sunday shows, he said, quote, this is not a contest about who can do better in front of a press conference or try to embarrass each other, end quote. Well, that would have been true, I think, on Biden's part, because say what we want about his politics, I don't think he's get down in the shit and grovel the way Trump was. Anyway, Fiona Hill, who said she remembered the Trump-Putin press conference as, quote, one of those moments where it was mortifying and humiliating for the United States, end quote. And last night she said that she thought Biden and Putin not holding a joint press conference was, in her words, quote, a great idea, end quote. So a lot of noise signifying nothing. Well, I shouldn't be that cynical. I guess there is something to have come out of this first meeting with Biden as president. He's met with Putin before, but this first meeting as president, along with this Nazi son of a bitch, or not Nazi, but Christian fascist son of a bitch, Vladimir Putin. I hope, I don't know if we'll ever know if it happened or to the degree it happened, but what I'm referring to is Biden explaining to Putin that if you want to get into a cyber war posture, then all kinds of shit is going to happen that could be very, very seriously, very serious. And I think part of the reason that really got to me, I hope he talked about it, was what's happened over the past few weeks when we've become intimately familiar here in this country with the national security threat. Come on, Mike. The national security threat of ransomware and cyber attacks, that Colonial Pipeline hack that knocked out fuel supplies to nearly half of the East Coast of the United States, which typically American, sparked panic buying. Remember that? Lines all over the place. And the hack against the huge meat supplier, JBS, which, according to press reports I've read, is the world's largest meat supplier. The ransomware hack against them, which immediately drove up meat prices. That's the thing about capitalism. They will never let a disaster go without making tons of money from it. So the wake-up call over the past couple of weeks, I think, for most of us, was pretty hot slap in the face. And that is, if our gas stations and grocery stores aren't safe from these international cyber gangs, and I have no doubt that all of these are based in Russia. I know the people over at the Fox Sewer and Onan News are trying to convince everybody, no, it's China. Because, the Chinese are not white or Christian. And the Russians are. You get the connection, I'm sure. So if these cyber gangs, all based in Russia, are able to penetrate our meat supply, I know you don't eat meat anymore, neither do I, or our energy sources, I know you're trying to stay with renewable energy sources, I get that, but the country, this entire country runs on meat and oil. Ooh, God damn, does that sound awful? Oh, God. So since that's the case, the question comes up, what else is vulnerable in this country? How much worse can these ransomware attacks become? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.